captive and break every chain, oh God. You have done great things. We dance in your freedom, awake and alive. Oh Jesus, our Savior, your name lifted high, oh God. You have done great things, yeah. Oh, you have done great things. Oh God, you do great things. Oh, you do great things. We praise you, Lord, for all the great things you're doing in our lives, all the great things you're gonna do. God, we praise you tonight, God. We lift your name up, your name above every single name, God. It's all about you tonight, God. What we want tonight is more of you, Father, more of you and less of us. God, we recognize who you are. We recognize Jesus the Son, what he's done for us, and we praise your name for it. Thank you for what you've done in us, Father, the hope that we have in you, Jesus, the hope that we have today and tomorrow and the next day and forever, God. We thank you for it. I cast my mind to Calvary, where Jesus bled and died for me. I see his wounds, his hands, his feet, my Savior on that cursed tree. His body bound and drenched in tears, they laid him down in Joseph's tomb. The entrance sealed by heavy stone, Messiah still and all alone. Oh, we praise you. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise. Oh Lord our God. Then on the third, at break of dawn, the Son of Heaven rose again. Oh, tremble death, where is your sting? The angels roar for Christ the King. Oh, we praise you, we praise. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forevermore. For endless days we will sing your praise. Oh Lord our God. He shall return. He shall return. Come on, sing it out. In robes of white, the blazing sun shall pierce the night, and I will rise among the saints. My gaze transfixed on Jesus' face. Oh, we praise you, Lord. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forever.
the mystery that your final breath became eternity. What we had lost forever, you redeemed. You redeemed. Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest.
It's all because of what you've done, Jesus. That we can claim victory in our circumstances, in our life. We can claim victory in our future, God. And that's what we'll do tonight, Father. We're going to claim victory in your name. Come on, sing the weapon. The weapon may be formed, but it won't prosper. When the darkness falls, it won't prevail. 'Cause the God I serve knows only how to triumph. Oh, my God will never fail. My God will never fail. So I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Yes, I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Oh, there's power, there's power. There's power in the mighty name of Jesus. Every war he wages, he will win. Sing it. So I'm not backing down from any giant, 'cause I know how this story ends. Oh, I know how this story ends. Oh, I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Oh, I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Sing it out. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. Yeah. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Oh, I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Some of you guys are trying to fight the battle by yourself. It's time to let it go. Put it in the hands of God. You have victory in his name. Throw it over to him. He can take care of it. And he can hold you in his hands. And we're safe there. We're safe in his hands. Come on, sing this out. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. Come on, sing that over. Sing that over. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. You turn it for good. That's what he's doing in your life. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. Oh, you turn it for good. Yes, you do, Father. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. Oh, you turn it for good. Come on, words, shout it out. You take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. Oh, you turn it for good. Oh, you take what the enemy meant for evil, and you turn it for good. Yes, you turn it for good. Oh, I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. Oh, I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory.
welcome to this portion of our Connect service. We're going to do something different tonight and for the next 2 weeks. A few weeks ago, I had a chance to sit down with a couple of men from our church, and we talked about some current events, some racial issues, injustices, inequality, and had a chance to ask them some questions and learn from them. So I wanted to share that with you. So we're breaking it up in 3 segments starting tonight. For the next 2 weeks, I know that you're going to enjoy this discussion, you're going to learn a lot, and I know you're going to be blessed. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, we are gathering today for what I hope is the beginning of many conversations. So I invited you guys here as just a start to say, you know, it's beyond time to really have conversation, but I really want to start with you guys because I want to hear your heart first. Men that I love and respect, whether I know you well or snoop on your Facebook. I'm proud of you and what you stand for, and I love you. So just want to open us up with a word of prayer if you bow your heads with me. Father, I pray, Lord, for healing. I pray these conversations will begin to lead us to change. Lord, if they're just conversations, God, shut it down right now because we don't want to just talk anymore. We want to talk with a plan to move things forward, to bring healing and to bring justice for all your people, Lord. And I pray, let it start in the church where the church has brought pain. Let the church be a place now of healing. Guide our conversation today. Let us speak truthful and from our hearts. And may our lives honor you. We love you and we thank you for this opportunity. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. All right, so I got a list of questions, and we'll work our way through that. I'm going to field the first question to Wendell. Wendell, I'm doing that, 1, because you are the senior member of our group today, and 2, because the respect I have for you as being one of my spiritual fathers, and I thank you. Thank you for the investment you've made in my life. So after Wendell shares, man, all you guys, please jump in. So I want to tell me how you feel right now. Some of the things that you've been dealing with. I know it may bring up some things from feelings that you've wrestled with, and then bring us up to this moment today. How do you feel right now?
Right now, it's still a feeling of sadness. It started out with anger because through my years, I was under the assumption that we had made progress, and we had. And to see something like this happen, it really saddened me, and to the fact where I had to just act and gravitate and get right on the phone and reach out to my son, reach out to my numerous grandsons, which there's a total of 12, and just give some type of advice. And they already knew some of the things that I have gone throughout the years, but I want to share with them some of the things that they need to hear from my wisdom and the life that I live, the life that my dad lived through me. So right now I'm just at a stage of sadness, for the world, but I'm grounded. I always have been for years, and I know without a doubt that through prayer, through trust, and through hope, we will get through this.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm hopeful right now. Initially, like when I had anger initially, because I've seen this happen over and over and over, and nothing seems to change. But I'm hopeful that I see a lot of, even with the protests aren't just only people of color. The protests are young people, old people, white people, black. It seems like everyone is. It's almost like this is more of the catalyst, hopefully, that will allow people to actually start to make changes. And I say hopeful because I know there's still incidents that even while watching the protests and peaceful protests and unfortunately the looting, which obviously don't condone and don't appreciate that, because that doesn't further the cause any, but further trouble that I see that even though people are out there protesting about police injustice and over aggression and overstepping their bounds, and I still see incidences where even though there's peaceful protests, the police are still abusing people, and there's a 75-year-old man in New York saw that they shove him to the ground, and he slams back, and he's got blood coming out of his ear, and I'm sure that I'm hopeful that the sergeant, I'm sure when they sat down that day, they all said, okay, look, we're going to go out there, we need to there's going to be protesters are saying we're over aggression, we're overstepping our boundaries, and let's serve and protect. And even the camera's going to be on you, so hey, let's be on our best behavior. And even though the cameras are there, even they're aware of it, and that's the reason of protest. You still see these injustices and people getting slammed to the ground. A young lady was got slammed, and it's just you see it over. But I'm hopeful now because, like I said, it's nice to see different races and different colors and everyone, not only blacks, being heard, but also, people of different colors trying to make change.
And I'd like to piggyback on that. Right now I'm actually still numb. And it's not numb because like, oh my gosh, I didn't ever see this coming, I'm numb because I've been numb for most of my life, having this go, at you, over and over again. It's not something new to most of us sitting in this thing. We weren't, blindsided by what is happening. I'm numb. I don't even know that I'm angry because I've had decades to be angry, and I don't want to, put it that way. I think one of the biggest things that coming in this last week, I'm a lot more optimistic than I thought I was, because I'm starting to see who my real advocates are. Right. And I'm starting to see who those real friends are. And I'm not talking about, national, spokespeople. I'm talking about those people that are really close to me. I'm talking because at the end of the day, all this stuff starts from, the family unit, starts from, those units that come from within the family unit, and so I'm real optimistic about the people that are around me. I'm starting to see who's really who's my advocate, who's there to try to help me get through this, and who's asking the questions, not because maybe it is out of ignorance, but they're asking it genuinely, like, I really never saw this, and, sometimes we, take for granted because we've been in these situations. We've seen them like, how couldn't you have seen it, but the system's been set up that way, for if it doesn't affect you, you never really see it,
I think you hit the nail on the head for me with that numb feeling. But even going further than that, I think it's a growing sense of frustration, because although this one seems different, we're having more talks about it. It's more communities are opening up, but that kind of shifts the onus back on us to say now it's our responsibility to speak on it, and to speak on it without allowing that anger to come up. So it's almost like I have to push down whatever emotions come up because of the topic area in order to communicate effectively.
And don't be that angry black man.
You say that. I remember my committee chair. I was writing my dissertation which focuses on middle school black boys being suspended at a higher rate. And he said, in your paper, you just sound like this angry black man. I said, what? Am I not allowed to feel? That's that privilege he had. He's allowed to be angry, but I'm not, because when I'm angry, it's looked as, oh, he's going to be aggressive, he's going to be violent, which is far from the truth. You know what I mean? So initially I was angry. I was so angry. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. I had to look at everybody on my Facebook.
What have you said?
I'm not. I looked at everybody. Oh, you didn't post anything? And my wife was like, calm down, pray. You have every right to be angry, but you need to just be patient. And I said, I'm going to protest. She didn't really agree with that because she was scared for me. But when I went and I saw, like you said, the people of color and people not, like just everybody, from different races, different gender, different sexual preferences, everybody was there. And there was no violence. It was peaceful. And I had hope. And I still have hope. The only thing I am afraid of is that once this dies down,
Yeah, absolutely.
when it's time to work, you know the church, right? There's a lot of people in this church. But the people who work behind the scenes, that's the church. You understand what I'm saying? And I hope that we still want to continue to fight the good fight and change the narrative if possible.
Yeah, I say I felt every emotion on this, and a lot of times for me, my perspective on feelings is a lot of times it helps me understand what I believe. Sometimes I think that how I feel about a thing can be just as much about me as it is about the moment. And so what happened for me is with all this stuff happening, I felt all those emotions, and then I just retreated kind of in prayer. I was silent for like several days. I prayed. And what landed on me was like there was this pain that, so at every level, whether you're talking about slavery, whether you're talking about Jim Crow, even in today, white, black, there's been love. There's been love.
Amen.
Black and white people have loved one another at every step. We've won championships together. We've conquered and fought in wars and bled. But then if you have the audacity to think you're equal, this thing bubbles up that is so painful. You know what I'm saying? Because we can do community, we can work together, we can do everything together, but don't you're not equal.
Right.
And to be reminded of that, but be able to be reminded of that so over and over again, the way social media is set up, it can be traumatizing. And so I think for me, yes, I feel hopeful. I feel tired. But I also feel thankful because Jesus gives rest. And so what's helpful for me, man, again, I've just been so thankful for my church family. Man, my first job, I was in Jefferson, Georgia, which is not a lot of black folk in Jefferson, Georgia. And then I was in Winder, Georgia. I'm going to tell you what, those people that I prayed with and I connected with that don't look like me, they called me and said, I respect you, Raphael. I love you, Raphael. I'm here for you, Raphael. And when I was getting those calls, just tears just came up because I needed that. Because I'm like, man, was the love fake? Was the connection that we had real? And so I'm hopeful. I'm still tired, and I'm really just leaning on Jesus more now than ever because I know that there's a shift coming, and I don't want to be a distraction. I just want to say, Lord, have your way. Have your way, Jesus.
I think I agree with you. Like, I just want to be part of the solution. I guess my initial thought was anger, overwhelmed. Like, we've been through a lot the last few months between, COVID and, homeschooling, something I'm not used to. So I guess, we've had this issue for a long time, and it keeps getting swept under the rug, When you have a topic come up and, it'll be on the news cycle for a day or so, then it'll go away, or it'll be social media anger, outrage, and then it'll just go away. But then you see something like George Floyd, something so blatant, something so obvious, something so undebatable, like you get the entire world to see like this is definitely wrong. So I guess when you see it and you see the outrage and you see it over and over and over again, my first thought was, I got outraged and I got angered, I got overwhelmed, and for me, when I get angry, I just shut down. Right. I tend not to express my emotions very well, and I guess seeing lots of groups come together, or seeing this group here come together, it's just seeing people around the world of different races, different cultures, I guess joining the same fight. That kind of gives me, I guess, the inspiration or the hope to, speak out as well. No matter how big or how small your voice is, anything you say, as long as you report the situation, anything you say will help. Anything you do will help to the greater good. So I guess anything that can be done to help, you're seeing more people come out and do that now. So, that inspires me to do the same thing.
I hear you guys talk about the social media thing, and I just started thinking about how I approached this thing when it first happened. I honestly didn't watch the video for a whole week. I would not watch it because I didn't want to see what I knew happened. Right. I heard the people, people immediately went to the streets and all that kind of stuff. It took me a whole week before I actually looked at the video.
Why is that?
Because I saw myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I saw myself.
That's what it is.
Good.
And I actually, you guys, we were just talking earlier, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, and I saw myself trying to preserve my own life. You know, there was actually a guy at the that was yelling at the police officers, telling them to get up, and they were trying to back him up. They didn't know that he was a trained jiu-jitsu mixed martial artist. And he held restraint for so long, and he watched a man die right in front of his eyes.
That's hard.
And he actually could have done something about it. It would have probably ended. He would have probably ended up dead too.
Yeah.
But you know, when I see things like this happening, you know, it angers me. You know, and you know, I consider myself a disciplined person. I mean, let's put discipline in quotes. But you know, I saw myself in that situation, and I see myself in those situations often when I see videos like that, and I'm like, what would I have really done in that moment? You know, that could have made it worse. That, you know, could have got me, you know, could have taken away any opportunity for me to get out of a situation. You know, I don't know, you know, and we watch a man who has, you know, basically, you know, succumbed and said, you know, hey, I'm giving up, you know, I'm not trying to do this. And that wasn't good enough, you know, and some of those chokeholds and, you know, the things that they were doing, I know what they do. I know what they do in real time. I've seen them happen, you know. I know the moment that I've choked somebody and put them to sleep, and I'm like, whoa, buddy, you all right? You know, I mean, because when we're training together and stuff like that, we have to go through those kinds of things. And to see somebody like that, and to know this guy went limp, and you're still on him, like no remorse, no, you know, empathy, no, hey, man, you all right, or anything. You know, I mean, that kind of. It does anger me, you know. So, you know, I know I said earlier, you know, I'm not really angry, you know, had a lot of anger. But I think what I'm trying to do is understand the psychology behind that. You know, understand why there's no appreciation of life just for itself. You know, I remember being a little kid, you know, and getting ready to, you know, shoot a robin or something like that because we were playing with a BB gun, and I got the robin in my scope, and I was just like, almost broke down in tears because I'm like, dog, that's life. You know, and I can snuff that out in an instant, and we all can do that at any given time, snuff life out, you know. But, you know, to have that appreciation for, you know, what God created in that, you know, light of just being alive, you know, not forget the race, the color, the whatever. Let's just talk about life. You know, that is where I'm trying to understand, what have we done as society, as human beings, that made life not valuable?
And I think that's the key question there. I mean, we've even seen historically, you know, with animals and them having activists that are so fervently fighting for their rights. And, you know, no matter what even when I go jogging at night, if I were to go jogging, my wife is always like, take the dog with you, or take the baby with you. But almost as if the dog is protecting you, because in the eyes of everyone else, that's a life, but you're just kind of attached. It almost seems, I don't want to say the roles are reversed, but I mean, when it comes to the reverence of life, it seems that way. Like, and I think you have a very valid question. Like, what did we do, or how did we get here, or
when did we become dangerous? Because like my son, like you said, I bring my son to Walmart. My wife just said, just take him 11 o'clock at night. I'm taking a kid to Walmart
to protect you,
right? To protect me. And when they see him, he's so cute, and now he's growing his little. You know, hair, and I'm like, you know, I don't want to stop him from, you know, expressing himself. That's what he wants. Let's do it. But I'm afraid that now he might look dangerous.
When does he become a threat?
Yeah, when do we become a threat?
And even looking at in the times that we're in right now, have any of you guys gone in a store? You know, I'm wearing a mask all the time, mask on my face all the time, because not for me, it's for my family. You know, I have an elderly living with me. I'm looking for my mask. Because I just kind of want to illustrate this. We're good. You know, so, you know, I have this mask on, and every time I leave the house, I'm like this, and I'm like, I'm a black man with a mask on.
Oh yeah.
I can get shot for trying to protect my family. the way everybody else does. And there are people that don't have to think about that, but I honestly think about it every day, that I have to go out and get supplies, to get groceries, to get toilet paper. You know, I'm walking in the stores, the grocery store, whatever, finding the cameras, looking at the cameras, kind of like, you know, like, hey, I'm not a threat, you know.
Me too.
And you know, there's a lot of people, you know, in our society, you know, that don't have to think like that. And there's so much, and I think that's where that numbness comes, because I started realizing I've been doing this since I was a kid. I remember when I was, you know, 7th grade, and me and my brother were in a convenience store. My mom gave us $10 for lunch every week. And lunch was $1.80, so you know, you do the math, you got 20 cents a day. We would save up $1 for the end of the day, and we would, you know, get some candy at the end of the week. It was like, you know, kind of a treat or whatever. We walk in the store, and this the clerk, when we go up to pay for our stuff, he accuses us of going to the candy store and stuffing our pockets and stealing all this stuff. And we were, you know, just like, sir, we didn't do anything. We put our coats down, we put them on the desk, and like, you can check everything. You know, the candy wasn't that good that week. It wasn't that good that week at all, you know.
Right.
You know, I thank God that I had a father who stood up for me when my mother and father came home. We told them what happened. We were in tears, we were crying, and we lived in a predominantly white area. He took us back up to the store, and he walks in and he says, I heard you accuse my sons of stealing in this store. And the man immediately apologized, and he said, I'm sorry, sir. He said, the moment your sons left, he said there were 3 or 4 other patrons in the store that said, and these were white patrons, they said, I know those kids. He said, I know their family. He said, I know their grandparents. I know everybody. He said, those kids wouldn't do that. You know, and they basically gave him the business.
Why do you think that is, though?
Well, there's one thing, you know, that you know, kind of, you know, conflicts me in my spirit, because in that light, I was actually privileged to have people that advocated for me because they knew my upbringing, they knew who I was, even though, you know, that new clerk or whatever didn't know who I was. But, you know, I look at that now, and I look at, you know, young black men and women, you know, around the country, and they go through this every day, and they don't have that advocate. They don't have that person saying, well, whoa, I know that kid. He's not that kid, you know. And, you know, so that kind of pains me too.
So would you say it's fair that white privilege exists?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And it exists, you know, it's a system, it exists to where you don't understand white privilege until you don't have it. It's the same thing I'm talking about, being able to walk in the grocery store and not have to worry about if I, you know, look up, you know, I look like a black man with a mask, and somebody might profile me on that. You know, it's the privilege where, you know, if the police lights go on behind you because you're speeding, you're not worried about, am I going home tonight? You know, that's a privilege in itself, to not have to think about those things every day. You know, my kids are going to college now, and I'm thinking about what they'll have to endure on their campuses, and I can't protect them. That's a white privilege, you know, to not have to worry about, to know that your kids are going to be protected wherever they go, you know. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm calling people in the areas that they're going to live in, like, you know, trying to make sure that there's somebody within an hour or so of them to be able to get to the campus.
Yeah, and I think when you're talking like from a corporate America perspective, like one of the most glaring issues or areas that I see is, you know, we have diversity programs, we have initiatives to help, you know, drive the number of minorities that are in executive positions. And so when you look at, first of all, if you take the United States, what percentages is Caucasian, what percentages is African American, and all the other races out there. If you look at those numbers, then you compare it to every level of the workforce, whether it's blue collar, white collar, and executive, you see a stark difference. So either white privilege exists, or there's something innately about African Americans that is inferior, or that they're just not smart enough, and I don't believe that. So what other description or reason do you have to believe that there's such a disparity?
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be out of malice or hatred. A lot of times it is, or sometimes it is. But also it could just be because you feel more comfortable. When I'm sitting in an interview room with you, I feel like I have more of a rapport because you're like me. And I think that's another privilege that other people of other races that aren't already in those positions have to contend with.
I was always taught when I was a kid, you have to make sure you're prepared way more than the next person is, especially the white person, because you can be more qualified, smarter, have more knowledge, have more experience. But if you're going against your white competitor, again, like he just said, they're going to go with someone that looks like them.
Right.
So if you do something, you got to make sure you're prepared to blow them away in an interview to have just an equal chance to get in that position.
You got to do twice as much to get half the recognition.
Exactly. So he taught me that at an early age. Whatever you do, just be prepared to do more than anybody else would. Because you got to make yourself stand out.
Yeah, I would definitely say there's white privilege, but what's interesting about that is a lot of the stuff we've talked about comes from that privilege too, in terms of the narrative about blacks. So the way blacks are perceived comes from the fact that most of the communication, the media, the movies, all that has kind of been owned and distributed by white people. What is interesting about social media, although it can make you experience trauma over and over and over again, now it's a lot easier to get a new narrative out, right? And so there is, it gives us a little bit more power to communicate the truths from our perspective, where I don't think that was a privilege that we necessarily had before. I think also that privilege exists just kind of based on the fact that the game was played for 310 years during slavery, where blacks could accumulate no property, no wealth. They didn't even own their own bodies or kids.
Right.
Then there's, I guess, a season where blacks are freed, but then every moment where there seems to be some level of progress is stifled.
Yeah.
Right?
All the way up to Tulsa.
So if I'm playing Monopoly with you, and every moment I can't play for 310 rounds and you buy all the property, and every time I stop, I have to pay you something.
And then hand you Baltic at whatever.
No Baltic.
We ain't giving you boardwalk.
Yeah, I know. But what's so funny about that is that the general status of blacks being poor and being sometimes less educated, the appearance of that sometimes is used as the evidence of superiority. When there's so many systems and structures and centuries of intentional getting ahead. And so there is privilege because there's centuries of wealth accumulation, education, and ownership that blacks just can't. You just don't have it.
I remember sitting in an internship, one of my first internships in college, was at Cisco Systems, networking company. And so I walk in and we're doing networking stuff, and all the guys are huddled around the screen, and they're watching the stock market on TV, and it's like they're really invested in, like, oh my gosh, what the heck is happening? What's happening here? Well, the stock market had crashed. It had one of those mini dips or whatever. Well, I looked at it, I said, oh, that's sad for a lot of people, but it didn't, it didn't bother me because I didn't have money in it. It's a thing. Right. So I asked them, I said, well, how much money do you have invested? They said, like $50,000, $40,000, $30,000. These are 17, 18-year-old kids. And it's like, well, where did you get that money? Well, when I turned this age, my dad gave me this and said, you need to learn how to use this. And I lost it all.
That was a toy.
And then he gave me more, and now I learned how to effectively use it. So I think when you're talking about catching up, that wasn't even in my mind. Now, right now, I mean, I'm giving my son the same thing, but at that point, it was never even in my mind. So think about you graduate from college, and you already have $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 just sitting there in a stock account, invested in Facebook, because someone gave you something that they had as a toy to play with, but it really taught you life lessons that everyone, because we're still catching up, because we're still behind, we're just now getting our footing under us.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys candor and talking about this, because I think one of the things we have done, especially early on when that term came out, is to say, so I hear you, these kids that get $150,000, $20,000, I love my parents. You know how much they gave me? God bless you. So I think what we do is we justify and go, well, I'm not privileged because we've equated that word in a different way.
Right.
Because we say, well, privilege is the guy who lives down the street that has a better job, that has more money, that drives multiple cars. And so I think that's one of the ways that the white community has been able to push that word off, is to say, hey, that's not me. And so I really appreciate giving that word a new narrative. I take that word away. I wish there was a better word, because I would love for white people to say, okay, I begin to understand. You're not saying, it's because you're rich, because, obviously I think in our country, even the majority of people that probably are below the poverty line, the majority of people on welfare probably are white, if you look at it statistically. So you would say, no, we're not saying that. We're saying there's hundreds of years of just a head start, whether it's money, education, anything, being left alone, being free, being able to come up with your own thoughts, being able to make your own way. And so I think when you're able to turn that narrative like that to hear from you, I think it really helps us to go, oh yeah, you're right. The best, it was so simple for me, because it was the best way that somebody put it to me. And they said, okay, here's the only question I really have for you. If you could choose to be born again today, would you choose to be black or white? And I mean, honestly, I went, never really thought about that before. I shared with our church, it's been a couple of years ago, somebody might be here, when there's so many, you can't remember which one it was, but when so many of my friends were going through this, the talks they have to have with their sons, the talks your parents had with you. And I thought, I never had that kind of talk with my kids, beyond color of our skin. How did we allow all of that to get put together, and then how do we begin to move forward to say, hey, this is a racial issue, and it's a humanity issue very much. So I really, really, really appreciate you guys' perspective on hearing from that on that topic.